He's super busy, but anyway, he was trying to find out a time to meet, but then the outbreak came, and no Kalaf, no article, nothing. And then he invited me to talk to him here in front of all of you. It's gonna be
Thank you.
awesome.
Thank you so much. And it was last minute, because we had to adapt to the festival, basically every hour we had to come up with a new program. And this slot opened, and I was thinking, like, who else should I beg and implore, get on my knees and say, please, we gotta save literary festivals, please come. And then I suddenly decide, okay, I can. I'm also an Angolan writer. I have a couple of books out, even though I never published. It's not translated in German, and in English, it's only coming out in 2023. But I decided, and Noemia is an amazing journalist, and I was feeling bad that we didn't have our conversation before. So I felt like, okay, let me implore to her. And she accepted.
Brazilians are very last minute people, right? So
Yeah,
you knew you
I
wouldn't
knew that
have
you
any
are
problem.
you're open for improvisations.
Okay, so for those who don't know Kalaf Epalanga, he's a writer, musician, and a BF21 curator. He had a major influence in the cultural and music scene in Lisbon since the 90s. Born in Angola and currently living in Berlin, Kalaf founded Enxufadas music label and joined the band Buraca Som Sistema, a national and internationally successful musical experience that boosted the sound of kuduro across Europe. In his book Também os Brancos Sabem Dançar, White People Can Dance Too, Kalaf has embraced autofiction, essay, and travel writing to produce a truly modern novel, cross-border and cross-culture. While the music gives the story its beating heart, it is really about the intersection of culture, race, and politics. So, for those who love music, you must read this book. But you need a paper and a pen to take note of all the names Kalaf mentioned here, and then you are going to have a fantastic surprise. It is not a book, it is a song book. So, I'd like to start by asking you, why did you write this book? What inspired you? And what did you want with such a musical journey in form of literature?
Um, well, in fact, the idea came in Brazil, in Rio. I was there in a literary festival, festival curated by Agualusa, who was supposed to be here, but, Corona, all the story. So he was moderating the table, and he decided to ask me about Kuduro. And I was in front of a Brazilian audience, and that festival specific is called Back to Black. Not really so fan of the title, but it's more or less like dedicated to the black culture worldwide, from the continent and the diaspora. A little bit like this festival, but in Brazil. And for the first time, I've been to Brazil with my band twice, but for the first time, I was in front of an audience that looked like me, like the audience that represented the 52 or 53% of non-white, basically black Brazilians. Yeah, so it was quite intense and impressive, because I know this by literature, books, films, and everything, but being in front of people that could be from Benguela, from Angola, from Congo, from Nigeria was quite intense. And I was there talking about a music genre that was very similar to baile funk, and all those people didn't knew nothing about it. The only idea that they had from kuduro was a soap opera that came out like a year before or something like that, that had this kuduro version from Miami, like it's called Danza Kuduro. Really cheesy, nothing to do with kuduro, just like just they just pick up the title because kuduro is quite sound, and a nice name. And I was then realized, like, even though I was speaking in Portuguese, people was understanding me, and I have this culture interaction between with Brazil, like Angolan literature have so much influence from Brazil, and suddenly I was an alien there. I was telling stories about my country, and that people didn't knew anything about it. So I had to explain exactly what kuduro is from the beginning. And when we finished the table, Agualusa turned to me and said, like, you should write the biography of kuduro, because people need to know the story of this music, because it's so important for the, let's say, the modern history of the country, the post-Civil War story of the country. But I didn't have time to travel to Angola, and chasing kuduro musicians is the worst thing because they never pick up the phone. So I was seeing my life really like being really complicated. And then I say, okay, I still have a connection with this music style. I'm a kuduro producer. I have a band called Buraca Som Sistema. We are definitely working with this music style. I decided, okay, if I tell the biography of kuduro, definitely I will not necessarily make a biography, but I can tell the story from my perspective, from my experience. And I was sitting on a story for 6 years, 7 years at the time when I started writing this book, which was a story from my first tour in Europe that I ended up in jail. And true story. I was arrested in Norway when I was going to perform at Way Out West. No, sorry. I was coming from Way Out West Festival in Gothenburg, and I was going to Oslo to perform at Oya. And it was like the most important festival that you could, aspire to be in Europe, aside of Roskilde and Glastonbury. And I lost my passport like 2 weeks before. Well, the book's all about that journey. And I felt like, okay, I can start there. I can pick up this point and then just dive into the history of kuduro, the social circumstances that made this music came about, and also the connections with other music styles, like from German techno to Detroit techno to house music from South Africa, deep into Cape Verdean music. So but the book, of course, has more layers than that, but that was the entry point.
So you can get a glimpse of what the book is about when Kalaf quotes all these rhythms and music. So why don't we show the audience a little bit of some kuduro?
Okay, kuduro. We can start with kuduro then.
So they can get inside this amazing book.
Okay.
Yeah. Now you're gonna feel the same thing I felt, and then we can talk.
I have something. Okay. So I will play. Okay, kuduro, of course, evolved. This is the type of kuduro that really got me hooked. Me going to the clubs and just falling in love with this. I will play like maybe 2 from that, and then I will play maybe like a more modern, or let's say a more updated version of the genre.
DJ Nnaobi. uma voz que deixa a tristeza a todos nós. Não sou a nós, mas também a voz. Não fique triste e vem remexer. Este comboio vai te aquecer. Baianos chegaram pra valer, tão arrasta com toda mangulê. Eu não esqueço de nigrir a nossa misanga. Disseram que somos desse coça, Bruno King agora vai tá do Sara. Agora não és puto prata, tu és agora puto bronze. Tipo mana malonga no 11. Esta dança mexe centena, coitado de voz tá me dá pena. Eu vou virar chicote verbal, mas solta a coluna vertebral. Bruno King é quem tá dar o gás. Andei já não precisa mais, porque 100% ele é capaz. Tá vire, comboio, homem tem tam 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 tam.
More or less like
Wow.
this.
Now I think everyone is on the same page. So, your book is also an attempt to speak to Europe, right? Or
Yeah, more or less. I usually write for my peers, for people that grew up with me. There's not that much books written about Angolan urban culture. I think the only one, even though he takes a different route, I think the only one that really, because we are from the same generation perhaps, is on Jackie, that somehow tells story that is very much connected to the streets and the urban environment. But we write for ourselves. We write for, because there's not that many of us. So when we, have the privilege of having, being able to choose writing as a profession, we probably are writing maps or living maps for other people from our generation and also the generation that is coming, to be able to, believe that it's possible to find a career in literature. And when I say literature, not just writers, because I always say that it's as important to have agents, publishers, everything, like the whole ecosystem. That's something that we lack a lot in our country. And when I write a book, I have those people in mind first. And of course, I try to also be part of the universal family of literature, connect with my peers from the continent, and also write stories that somehow are, appealing or people from Asia or Europe can relate to.
yeah, but white people can dance too.
Well, the title is deceiving.
Why is it
Like the title doesn't really. I gave this title really to see if people really read the book, because most of the people really get really upset and come to me and say, no, we can dance as well. Like I say, yeah, but that wasn't the meaning, of the title. It's something else. Yeah, to not give you too much of the book, the title is inspired on a proverb from Angola, on Bundu proverb. I will not be able to say it in my own language, because I'm also product of this thing called colonialism that, for many reasons, and Angola has a tragic relation with colonialism, that didn't really incentivize the, learning the native languages. And, well, it's a long story. I can explain later. But the proverb goes more or less like, white people knows good songs as well. And then, of course, since I was talking about kuduro, I flip it to dance. And the meaning of that proverb is like, we shouldn't judge anyone by their appearance, or since we are in a literary festival, we shouldn't judge a book by its cover. And since the backbone of the book, of the story, is migration. Yeah, like for example, I have the book has the main character, which is inspired on me, but it's not necessarily myself. It's just an inspiration. Is having a dialogue, a silent dialogue with the policeman that arrests him. And then it's funny because the policeman is also falling in love with the woman from I have like a it wiped out from my mind. Where she's from, the character? Lebanon. Lebanon. Yeah, yes. Because I'm translating from Portuguese to English in my mind, so I have like
She was from Lebanon.
yes, but I'm really slow because I'm translating everything.
I know what you
first.
mean.
Yeah,
Portuguese.
it's hard. And the policeman is trying to go south, basically, and my character is trying to go north, and I have this contrast between those choices. For my character, it's important to go to Europe and teach Europeans about culture, and the other character, the policeman, is just fall in love. He's trying to go to meet the love of his life. I really say that a lot when I'm usually in white spaces in front of white audiences, because people ask me like, oh, how is to live in Europe and stuff like that, and I usually don't get I don't feel anything about it, because I know where I come from. I have the privilege of meeting my grandparents, for instance, because they live long, like Onjak's grandparents as well. They went to hundreds. And when I'm by myself here, I know that I'm standing on their shoulders. So it's not like, I know where I come from, which is something quite revealing, especially when I'm traveling in Brazil, is when you are confronted with the African diaspora that was stripped from that root, stripped from that connection, and my job in a way is really saying that, look, even though we had history and some of the aspects are really tragic and sad, but it's so important for you to just go there, just travel there, just take off your shoes and just walk barefoot on that land and just try to find a connection. And for example, I have two kids, and they were born in German, and I gave them Angolan names. And the reason I gave them really strange names, and everybody really have a strong time to pronounce them, is because that name is somehow a hook that even if I disappear tomorrow and I cannot be able to tell where they come from and introduce them the history, at least part of it, that name can then, they can follow that route.
Fantastic. Well, as you said, your book is also about immigration.
Yes.
And it was written 2 years prior to the pandemic outbreak. If you were able to translate the story of your first character, it is because the book is divided by 3 parts. So let me explain your book, okay?
Please do.
So first it is Kalaf's character. Then it is a female character, white Angolan, a white woman Angolan, right?
No, a white woman born from white Angolan parents.
Yeah.
But she was born in Portugal.
Who dances fabulously well, and she's a Kizomba's teacher.
Yeah,
right?
she's a Kizomba teacher.
And then the third part is about the policeman, the Norwegian policeman, that put, what is the name of the character? Put Kalaf's eagle, Kalaf's.
Yeah, I call him Viking.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a name.
Yeah, and all his problems and issues, and music all the time. So when I read your book, and I identified by being a Brazilian and by being very frustrated because the book is in Portuguese, and then I realized that language is culture, but not every culture is language. Do you know what I mean? We speak the same language, but we have so many different cultures. Why didn't we know that? Why didn't I hear about Kuduro, about Cesária Évora, Paulo Moraes, before, as you quote so well about Chico Buarque, about Cartola, all the wonderful Brazilian musicians. Why did it happen?
Well, Brazil is an invention. Yeah. So someone invented that country. Yeah. So when you invent something, yeah, so you have the power of dictating the narrative. Yeah. So it takes really a huge effort to break the mold, because the powers that basically hold the, let's say, the destinies of Brazilian history, they don't really want to share, space. They feel like they did everything. And we know that Brazilian culture, partly, or even like most of it, is thanks to the African presence there.
Sure.
Yeah. So, and it's really tough to see, like, you celebrate samba, you celebrate carnival, like all that, but it feels like doesn't belong to Brazil sometimes. It feels like this is a strange organ on that body, and we know that that's the skeleton, that's the structure, and it's really sad. I would say when I go to Brazil, I have this exuberant joy of reconnecting with so much of my upbringing, musically, literature, films, and everything. But at the same time, I'm sad because I know that someone has a foot on so many people's necks and is not letting go. And as we see the results of the pandemic and all these millions of thousands of people dying, is the result of not being able to embrace everything that composes Brazil. And we just have this narrative that a family from Portugal arrived there,
Save.
yeah, and light the natives and gave civilization.
Yeah.
Yeah, and but then you go deeper, like, okay, let's discuss civilization then, and you see the cracks. Yeah, you see that it's all an invention, and a bad one, to be honest.
And then when we have diversity as an important tool to unite us, it brings division. So how literature and music can make it different, if it is possible?
Well, again, it's not the writer's responsibility to save the world, um, but I believe the stories can change. Yeah, like the stories can evoke emotions and can make you something. Yeah, because again, a writer is just like the vessel. He's just observing the surroundings and putting in words. But if the story makes you stand up and start a revolution, it's not the writer's fault, even though we know that they're gonna go first for the writers, put in jail and kill them. Um, but the story remains.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So, getting back to the topic immigration, because I just got lost in my question, but you got it. Now we have the pandemic, and your book was written 2 years prior the pandemic, right? 2018.
Well, came out.
Came out.
I was with this book like for a long
Yeah.
time.
But let's suppose if your character was living now, should be possible to an Angolan traveler forgetting a passport on an international bus trip? Would it even be possible? What does it mean to you from a political perspective applied to these days?
Well, this is happening every time. I now have an European passport, so I can, relax a little bit. But every African citizen with an African passport struggles in every border, like across the globe,
Yeah.
from Asia to America. Yeah, it's just, and sometimes like even like kind of like perversely, when I have friends, like really good intentioned people that try to travel to Angola and tell me about like struggles to get there, the embassy is giving them a hard time. I some kind of like, like I say, oh yeah, it's bad. I know your pain, but deep down I say, hypocrisy. It's yeah. You can also feel it a little bit.
Yeah.
I laugh. It's like what I can do. Like I would erase borders definitely, but what I can say, it's not a beautiful thing. And to be honest, I try, when I'm among my community and when we are talking politics, I always find important also to exercise let's say, the Afro-Europeans' privilege, because we have the power to vote. Yeah, we can elect government officials, and we should definitely apply the pressure. Every time I'm in front of the politician, I only speak one thing: migration. We need to uplift the communities. We need to, put bookstores into the label use. Like the ghettos. Germany has a few as well. It's really important that, and of course they don't listen. But I hope by keep on beating on the same key, eventually someone will wake up. And really, I I really don't believe that politics can change society. I think society needs to have this deeper reflection, especially also the power of the civil society. I believe on that power. Politicians somehow are, they are, when you are in the circus and you jiggling too much, well, clowns, right, is not strong enough. Trumps can come up, yeah, Bolsonaro's can come up, because if the civil society turns a blind eye to any injustice, all those guys will have more power, and it's just simple as that. So it's our responsibility to really watch every detail, and I think like this pandemic exposed so much of the discrepancy in society. Like, there are people that lost jobs, their housings, and their ability to really survive, and we cannot leave anyone behind. Yeah, and when we leave someone's behind, it gives more power to those forces to have, like, because people get frustrated. When they don't have food, and you see your kids, asking for something, and you're not able to provide them, man, there's always alternative, and the alternative is always violent.
While enjoying all the musical stuff brought by your book, I found that all your characters, despite being different, we have Norwegian, we have Brazilian, Lebanese, Portuguese. We have so many different nationalities in your book. And then it brought me the issue about identity. How did you get to put everyone in the same place and giving them the same human dilemmas, even when they come from a different culture? Why did you do this? Or if it was on purpose? And I would ask, how identity can come out from music, from dialogues, from diversity?
Well, I believe that's the power of art, the power of literature, in fact. Teach us empathy. Like I grew up reading stories from people from different places in the world, and I could relate to those characters. And when I bring those characters to my literature, I don't know, like sometimes, like, you're telling a story and it's happening in Norway. You dig in and try to dive and learn a little bit more about the country, and you suddenly discover that the oil industry, which is something that is very praised. I come from an oil-producing country, so a lot of us really have that feeling, like, if we were just like, even like the Arabs, we could have, like, enjoy the fruits of that wealth. And Norway is really praised because they have like a hedge fund, like every Norwegian has like a little percentage from that money. All the social needs are covered and everything. And, and I was thinking, like, yeah, Norwegians are really smart. But turns out to be that program was created by one guy from Iraq. Yeah, he was born to a Norwegian. Oh, so he was married to a Norwegian woman. They had a son, and the son had a disease, and the son could only get treated in Norway. Well, it was more simple for them to get treatment in Norway. So he got permission from Sudan, went with the wife, to treat the kid. But then, of course, once there, away from Sudan, he decided, okay, I will not come back. And one day he just pick up his curriculum, and this is like 70s, yeah, not so long ago. He picks up his curriculum, no, maybe late 60s. He picks up his CV because he read on a newspaper that Norway just discovered oil and gas. He decided to knock the door of the oil whatever institution, and they didn't have no idea how to deal and make profit out of it, because they had Americans trying to grab it, they had the Russians trying to grab it, and there come this Iraqi man, goes there with a CV, delivers at the reception, say, yeah, if you guys have a job for me, I would love to work for you. And the guy that receives the curriculum sees like the guy was the one that basically made the whole Iraq and I think Kuwait as well. Or I think he was from Kuwait. I'm messing up, sorry, my memory is bad. That's why I'm a writer, yeah. I take notes. But his job was incredible, yeah. And he was hired. And he was the one that basically fixed the system. But Norway couldn't credit him because of some dodgy, black people do the job and white people get the credit. We know the deal, no? And he did the job. He organized that. He was one of the most important persons in that institution, but he could not get the credit. So it's sad. And I knew that by accident, yeah? And when you stumble on those stories, because I was reading a lot of Norwegian newspapers back then. When you stumble on those stories, you say, man, like, how can I introduce these characters into the novel? Because it's so important. And I know a lot of Norwegians that have no idea of that man's existence.
Wow. And ironically, now we have people fighting to get the best vaccine, the Russian one or the German one or the Indian one. So,
Just politics.
yeah.
The vaccines are good, man. They work.
Okay, so back to your book. I really loved your female characters. You have two male characters: the female policeman and the Angolan Kizumba
dancer.
teacher. Yeah, and what intrigued me it was because you wrote in first person for your female character. How did you get to understand our soul so profoundly?
No, believe me.
You got any help from your woman, your
No,
partner?
I know,
Please tell.
no, I didn't add. I give credit to one guy and one guy only, Chico Buarque.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't know if you know Chico Buarque, but he is really famous for writing amazing songs and plays as well, with female voice.
yeah. Actually, he is the love of all Brazilian women
Yeah.
because Chico Buarque talks to us as being a woman, you know. So, and he has a wonderful, beautiful eyes
Yeah.
as well.
I basically just,
You
tried.
must know him.
I was just copying Chico Buarque, like if he managed, because I love music, yeah, and I just dig in, and dived in, and try to, pay homage, because for me, like this book is really paying homage to the power of music, because to be honest, I really, I don't think I read that much classics growing up, because I was growing up in the 80s in Angola. I'm trying to catch up now, but on my upbringing, beside Russians, that was really popular in my country, and Brazilians, yeah, music was my entry point. Like jazz helped so much to understand Western, yeah, because somehow you could listen to Hugh Masekela and South African jazz musicians, and then they were talking about, the Duke Ellingtons, and of course also Miriam Makeba was also an entry point to the 60s and 70s musicians from the US. So yeah, I for me I take as much influence from literature and also from music.
Yeah.
I have no boundaries. I can get from anything, and also newspapers. I love stealing stories from the newspapers. This is my favorite thing to do.
And we cannot forget that you are a musician as well, right? So I'm talking to the writer now. But for those who don't know, if put Kalaf Epalanga's name on Google and you see an amazing amount of work in his music with Buraca Som Sistema.
Yeah,
So
I have this part, and to be honest, I end up being a musician because everybody was saying like literature, you cannot pay your rent with it, and and I decided to basically pick up a microphone and start making music because
please don't be shy. It's very good music, as your book. There is a portion in your book in the Sophia story, the Angolan woman. And Quito, the Brazilian character, he invited you, because you are in this part of the story too, and four more black guys to have a dinner in a very fancy restaurant in Salvador de Bahia.
no, it was in Lisbon.
Ah, in Lisbon. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. And then you are just celebrating the fact that five black guys can have a dinner in a very fancy restaurant without being bothered. What does it mean in terms of race?
Well, no,
It is a conquer.
Yeah.
What is this?
for us, and of course for me definitely, and some of my friends, because that's a real episode that really happened. And Quito Ribeiro, the character, is a friend of mine. Is a filmmaker, movie editor, writer, musician, incredible human being. And he was visiting. He was editing a Kuduro documentary produced by the son of the Angolan president, which was quite funny. But he, being a black Brazilian, he'd never really experienced, being with, people like that look like him on a fancy restaurant in Brazil without having to look on their shoulders, without being, with the antennas up and really spotting all the micro racism that we face most of the time. So he sent me a message later on. He was already, I think, in Brazil. He sent me a message saying, "Thank you for that moment, because last time I felt that free, I was 10 years old in Bahia, because he's from Bahia."
Yeah.
And I felt like, that humbled me, because, we cannot take for granted freedom, I'm not saying that in Europe things don't happen, but of course there are layers to it. But in Brazil, people are dying because of the color of their skin by the minutes. I think, I don't know the statistic, but it's just something that is overwhelming, sad, and just because they're blacks, because they live in the wrong neighborhoods, and funny enough, Quito is about to publish his book, and he also used that story on his novel, because that was really a strange feeling. When someone says, "Hey, look, I never felt that free," and we were just being us, four men talking bullshit, from sports to women and all that, and enjoying life, and he don't have that, and it's so strange for me still today.
Yeah, and your book brings it very beautifully in a way, in this story, even being painful, But as a Black Brazilian myself, I really related to what does it mean being in a fancy restaurant and being myself. So we have only 3 minutes left. So now we know that whites can dance too, right? So what are your perspective for the African literature to be more acknowledged and more consumed in the European markets? And then, what do you expect? What do you want from different markets, different countries, to get about what African culture has to offer?
I think I cannot answer this in 3 minutes.
Yeah, okay. Give it a try too.
But I can say, really, consume more culture from the continent, consume more culture from the African diaspora, and we are out here. There's no such a thing as, you only can get African literature from the continent. No, there are books being published in Germany, in German. Yeah, so just be open-minded. Just believe that you can be surprised, like really wonderfully surprised. I don't know if that's correct, but there's so many beautifully surprised. There's so many stories. There's so many perspectives on life that people, our neighbors, can give us and can change our lives as well.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And I hope everyone here can dance at home. Thank you.
Thank you.